Hey guys, I'm here today to give you first impression of this game right here, Raiders of the North Sea. Now, I'm not just going to give you my first impression of this game, but I'm going to go ahead and go down to the table, as they say, and show you a little bit about it with the components and the board and setup and basic gameplay. Uh, it's a game, I can tell you, spoiler alert, I like it. That's why I bought it. Not long ago, I had played this at a friend's house, and I was just like, wow, you know. Anyway, I'm giving away too much. We'll come back to this in just a second. Let's get to the table. Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm in my back room here now with a little bit of setup. I just wanted to introduce you to the Raiders of the North Sea, what's in the box and the components and all that sort of thing. You may hear in my background, since I live in the country, some crickets. So if that's annoying, I'm sorry, just try to block it out. But if not, maybe you can embrace it and just relax. It's like a zen sort of state. I've lived with the cricket sounds for many decades of my life. I kind of like it. Anyway, the thing I want to tell you about Raiders of the North Sea, for the great price point that it's a compact box. Everything inside it is really tight. It puts, it doesn't really waste that much space. And you get a lot for the money that you pay. Now, I was just going to bring out a few other things here. Like here is the Dracula, Fury of Dracula box. So I got them kind of side to side, so you can kind of see, and that's by Fantasy Flight. A lot of boxes like that same. Oh, my other phone's telling me I have mail. Hey, that box to the Fury of Dracula is about the same size as your Ticket to Ride boxes by Days of Wonder, and so that is a stereotypical size box. And so if I opened it up and I compared all the components, you'd be surprised how much is in this Raider, how much room they save, and it makes it a little nicer because they put the room on your shelf. Now you also have here's another box size comparison, which is Ethnos, which is a game I love. Now this box is actually bigger in one dimension of the Fantasy Flight boxes, where they do like Android Netrunner and that sort of stuff. But you can see how much bigger surface area, but on the side it's a lot thinner. Like it's a lot, shorter, so you lose, like a little half-inch there on that. So, and then the last traditional size of a box would be something like Hit the Road, which the thickness is about the same, but it's a little more square. This is like, love this game, by the way. But anyway, we're not talking about those games today. We're talking about Raiders of the North Sea, designed by Shem Phillips. Fantastic game. I'm about to open it up and show you what it's all about, guys. Okay, so I got the lid off now, and I was just going to show you a few things here. You got the, of course, rule book, which is very easy to read. You got this awesome unfolding board here, which I'm going to show you in its full glory in a second. You get these offering tiles. That's the Jarl that you're making offerings to get points, which it shows you there in the corner. These are provisions that you need to travel to the different locations to make raids. These are the different colored, the white, gray, and, the white, the gray, and the black workers that you use to do the different functions on the worker placement area. These are the markers to help you score around the board. This is the bag full of supplies. I just keep them in here now. You could put them in another Ziploc bag if you want, but inside here has all the different little pieces like, here, I'll just dump some out so you can see them here. But it's got your different items in the game. You have your gold, that's your iron. These are Valkyries, the little black pieces. I know it's hard to see. And then basically your last thing that you have are, I guess they call them cows, because you face it like this and it's brown. But I always kind of looked at it upside down, so I end up calling them chickens. So in my group, I'm always calling them chickens, and I've kind of converted them over. But either way, the rule book says they're actually livestock. But that's gold, iron, livestock, and Valkyries. Then you have these amazing metal coins. Look how heavy those are. I just blasted my pieces across there. And then you have your 2 dice to see if you get bonus points when you raid. And you have a bunch of the cards. Now these are their worker people, which I'll lay out later. You have the 4 player colors that you can be, red, green, yellow, and blue. And the reverse side right there, like the front of it, it'll see this. If you get 50 points or higher, you flip your card over. And it gives you a little reminder of what points are worth in the game. And these, of course, are all the different Vikings you can hire to put on your ship. All right, well, I'm going to kind of spread the table out and then give you a little more information as I chase down my livestock and Valkyries on the floor. Just give me one moment. I'll be right with you. Let me just go ahead and kind of give you a little closer look at the board. There's two areas divided by this water section. There's a worker area, and then there's a raiding area, which are all these little squares. And these are places that you can place your workers to raid any one of these areas here. And I'll kind of just go over it to explain how it works. But let me go ahead and make sure I give you a setup. Basically, you lay your big, beautiful game board all the way out. And then each player, of course, chooses what color they want to be. Here's the ship. So we have a yellow player and a green player. And it's a little harder with the glare there, so I apologize for that. But every player gets one black Viking worker and 2 silver coins. They're each dealt 5 cards from the deck of Vikings that can be on your ship, and then they discard down to 3. So this is actually a pretty good little thing here. Then you have your dice off to the side with your leftover livestock. You really don't need these are Valkyrie. This is what happens when you raid a spot over here and you have these Valkyrie pieces. You will have your cards are Vikings that die in battle. So I just usually put those over back in the black bag that they give you with. But as time goes on, the supply will probably shrink and grow, but eventually usually gets pretty big by the end. So anyway, you set the board up. You place each player gets their worker, their coins. There are 5 cards. They go down to 3. For example, like this player here chose these 3 cards, and this player chose these 3 cards. I'll explain a little bit more on that in a second. But for the rest of the setup of the board, there's these little places that let you track. You get these little pieces, like I guess just place markers of each color of the person, and you just put those on 0. There's 3 places. There's an armory track. And then it'll have, if you reach a certain degree, you'll get points at the end, bonus points at the end of the game scoring. Then there's a Valkyrie track. Same thing, if whenever you have a Viking that dies, you get to move your color up the track appropriate, like, oh, I had 2 that died, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the game, if you have all 7 that die, that's worth a bonus 15 points, which is pretty amazing. And then this, of course, your last one, is your point scoring track. So you'd have your 2... well, it's a 2-player game I kind of set up for. And it kind of whips around the board here and goes up to 49. And as I said before, if you end up scoring over that, you just flip your card over and it'll say 50. So you know from that point on, when you go around the board, you have 50 points. Also in the bottom right-hand corner, you have these offering tiles, which are things that you can use from your supply to purchase and give to the Jarl to get points. Okay, so anyway, the things that you can do during the game on your setup. Oh, I almost forgot about the setup for the raids. Each spot, each square in a raid here has a number in the top left. So you reach into the black bag that they give you at the beginning of the game over here with all the supply pieces mixed in there. You shake it up, and every number on the top left, like I'd put 3 in here randomly, 4 in here random, 4 in here randomly, 4 there, 3 there, and so on until every space has the right number. And then in the top right of each spot, it has what kind of worker they're like. That's a gray worker. And those have white workers in the fortresses and in the higher stuff up there. And down here, let's see, those are gray workers as well. To go to these locations, if you decide to raid, you have to have the appropriate worker there, which is a black or gray worker. And you also have to meet these conditions. You have to have at least 2 members of your crew, which is 2 cards, and 3 provisions. And you'll see how you get that in a second. So we got the Jarl tiles out. I think that's pretty much all the setup. Everybody has their coins, and you roll the dice, and whoever has the higher number and strength will go first. If not, you can play rock, paper, scissors, or whatnot. And let's see. We go over here to the worker area. And so at the beginning, you can't really go out raiding because you don't have any provisions to get your Vikings across the sea there to the raiding areas. So you take the 3 black workers in the bag and you place them at the blue highlighted places, which is the gatehouse, the town hall, and the treasury. Now these places, the mechanics in this game is you will take your Viking worker and you will place him in a spot. And then you'll do whatever that spot says. Like if you place him at the mill, I have a black worker here. So by placing it there, I will collect 1 provision from the supply. So like I, give it to the green guy. And then you have to pick up a worker. So you place a worker, do the action, and then pick up a worker. Now there's no worker to pick up from the barracks or the silversmith or these other areas like the armory. So, but let's say, I'll just go over each area. So if I pick this up from the gatehouse, it lets me draw 2 cards. So I go over here and I add 2 cards to my hand. So these cards are actually not in play yet. But so anyway, now I have 5 cards in my hand. And then it's the next player's turn. So each time, if you're working, you will place a worker and then do its action, and then you will retrieve a worker and do its action. So let's go over each area so you know what they are. You have the gatehouse, which lets you draw cards, which are Vikings that you add to your crew. You can have a maximum, I believe it says on the card, 8 of basically everything. You can have up to 8 silver coins. You can have unlimited on the supply, like the iron, the gold, and the chickens. But you can only have 8 provisions, 8 silver, and 8 cards in your hand. But in your crew, you can never have more. Once you purchase these guys, which takes silver to put them into play, once you have these guys on your ship, you can't have more than 5 at any time. And you can also replace, if you get a full crew, or if you just want to replace a guy, you can say, hey, I'm going to put this one in and ditch this guy. So, I mean, it's not a problem. So let's go over the areas again. So if you go to the gatehouse, whether you're placing or picking up, you will draw 2 cards. If you go to the town hall, you will play the action off of one of the cards. I'll go over that in a second. If you place in the treasury, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to do one action, which is gain a gold nugget, which is there. Or you can discard 1 card in your hand and gain 2 silver coins. And silver basically lets you purchase crew, okay? You can go to the mill like you saw me do earlier, which is collecting provisions, and you need provisions to cross the sea to do raids. So takes 1 provision there, but there's some up here that take a huge amount of provisions. Like that takes 3 provisions, 5 crew, and that top part's bonus points that you will roll dice to see if you get that. But that's in the next section. The armory here, if you get, right now you only start off with black workers, but if you have a gray worker or a white worker, you can place or remove it here, and then you can either trade in an iron to move yourself up 2 up a track, on the armory track, which adds to your strength, or you can spend 2 coins of silver to move up 1 spot on the track. The barracks let you play a card, so that's where you want to put it in place. So like, let's say you place a worker there, or you happen to pull one off. You're like, aha, I want to put this guy into play. Well, actually, I don't know if I like that guy. Let's use the Brawler. He's one of my favorites. I love this guy. Okay, so anyway, you can see right here, he takes 2 silver, so you'd have to spend 2 silver. And you're like, okay, do that. This guy will be my friend forever. So you spend 2 silver. He comes into play in your crew. This is still in your hand. So he's like a part of your crew now. And he has usually an ability. It says once per raid, you may re-roll 1 die. So that lets you help accomplish to get more victory points when you're doing raids. But the top left is the strength. So this adds to the strength that you do during raids. So you have how much it costs, how much strength does it add, and usually a special ability. Now to the right is its action ability. If it's in your hand and you do the town hall action, you would just do this ability and then discard it. And the Brawlers is lose 1 crew member to gain 1 plunder from the supply. And plunder is your supply pieces right here. So, basically you're getting a livestock, an iron, or a gold. So you would go there, do the action by placing or pulling off, and discard that card from your hand. Not from the crew, it's already in play, but if it was in your hand, you could do that for the town hall actions. Over here at the longhouse, you need a gray or a white worker, but if you do this action, you can do 1 of 2 things. You can either spend a livestock to gain 2 provisions, or you can make an offering to the Jarl here, and they're worth victory points at the end of the game here. So basically, if you spend a gold and an iron, that would become yours. You just place it face down, and then you replenish the one here. Boom. And then you keep on going. All right, let's see what else do we have on the worker track. The mill gets you different things. Of course, if you have a gray worker, you'll get 2 provisions. If you have a white worker, you get 2 provisions, or you can have the choice of getting a piece of gold. And gold lets you raid fortresses. And also, let's see, the silversmith, that's how you get money in the game besides discarding over here. You can place a worker or pull a worker. If it's a black worker, you get 3 silver, but if it's a gray or a white worker, then you will get 2 silver. And that's all the functions on the lower for the work. So you have 2 choices. You can either work or you can raid. So if you're working, you're going to the lower part, you're placing a worker doing an action, then you pull a worker and doing an action, then it's the next player's turn. But let's say you've built up some stuff and you're like, hey, I'm ready to raid. I got some crew members. Let's say this guy here, he's like, you know what? I've got 3 in my crew. I've got some provisions. What can I do? Well, first of all, he only has a black worker. He can't go too far until he gets different colors because these require higher colored workers to place in these circles. But basically in a raiding spot, you'll have 3 areas and you can put it anywhere here, and that means you can raid any one of the spots. So like for instance, he says, okay, I'll place my worker here. And so he chooses which spot to raid. So he says, oh, maybe I'll take this one. So if he does, he'll get all the items there. He'll get the gold, and he'll also pick up the worker. So now he has a worker again to place in other areas. And the gray worker can also do different abilities or raid different spots, because you can't use a black worker here. You have to use a gray worker only. So that's helpful for that. And then these workers get finally mixed in down here, and everybody gets a hold of one, even if they're having a little bit of trouble. But if you raid a spot with a black piece in it, it's a Valkyrie, and those are people trying to oppose you, and they kill one of your cards for every black one there. So you're like, oh, if I raided there, you have to lose one of your guys, and they may or may not have a special ability that some of them say, oh, you gain glory if they die, which is the victory track, or I think they just call it VP in this game for victory points. But that's what that does. But you can spend the other things, like in here, remember, if you happen to collect iron, you can, on one of your actions, if you place a gray or a white worker, you can discard one of your iron to the supply to move this up the track. Now, if you're in a combat area, so just the lower areas here, the harbors do not have any type of combat. But for instance, let's say you work your way up here and you're going to take on, I don't know, let me see an area that I like to raid. Like right in the middle of the board here. How about that? That looks pretty sweet. Let's go to this outpost. So let's say he has a gray worker now, and then later on, he gets that gray worker back, and then he sets the gray worker inside this area here. So he says, I'm going to raid this so I can get 2 of my workers killed off so I can advance my track up here. First of all, he has to make sure he has at least 3, he or she has 3 crew members, and then they have to also have 3 provisions, which they discard back to the supply. And then they're like, all right, I'm going to raid here. And now they have a white worker. But now we see if they're going to score any points. Okay, down here on lower one, you just get 1 automatic point. But up here, to get any points, you have to roll the dice. And it says there's 1 spot here, so you would roll 1 dice. Here is 2, you'd roll 2 dice. So what happens is he would roll his 1 dice here, take that number, add it to any strength of the party that's raiding, and then you would add in any strength to the track. And if it ends up being, let's see, which one did I read? Okay, here. So if it ends up being 10 or more, then you'll get 2. But if it happens to be 16 or more, you get 4 victory points. And then you would just move accordingly around the board like such. So anyway, you continue just to raid and keep working. Sometimes you have to go back and forth because it's all about the provisions. Getting the provisions to go places. Sometimes you can keep your Vikings alive by raiding spots, but you almost always need to find a way to have provisions. And there's a couple of different ways and the way the synergy of the cards work that help you win. But the game ends on 3 conditions, I believe. One is the fortresses are up top, the top row, which are worth the most as far as if you can try to score points on. But there's 6 of those. If there's only 1 fortress left, then that triggers the game end condition. So if one player triggers that, everybody will get a last turn, including the person who triggered that condition. Also, another trigger of the condition is if all the Valkyries, once the last Valkyrie is taken off the board, that's another way, the second way that this game can end. And the final way to trigger the end condition of the game for the last loop around the track is if the last card is drawn from the stack. I'm like 99% sure of that. My brain's a little wobbly, guys. But that's another way. So basically running out of these cards here, and they don't have to be running out of here, but if the last card is drawn from the tile pile, then that triggers the end condition. And then you basically add up all your points. The book is really streamlined on how that you go through it and score each one just so you don't miss anything. And it's a fantastic game. That's the basics of the game. Beautiful game. It's well worth the price that you paid. And, well, let's go back and just chat 2 seconds on it. Love this game. All right, guys. So there you have it. The little bit of information on how to play, the basics there of how the game works. Great game. Great experience by playing it. It plays smoothly, it plays easily, has a lot of synergy, great design by Shem Phillips, and I'm excited to play the other North Sea games out there. So I highly recommend this. If you get a chance, play it. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. I know that I loved it. Until next time, my friends, keep the dice rolling. I'm ET. This is the Dice Matrix. Have a great day.